And hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Leadership for Tomorrow, starting now. My name is Hugo Santos. I'm an assistant lecturer at the University of Wyoming at Casper. And here's my co-host.
Hello, Rochelle Green. I'm the director for our Organizational Leadership Program at UW Casper.
And today we have a very special guest, one of my favorite people here at University of Wyoming and whole Casper. We have Anna Kinder. She is the current executive director of the Casper-Natrona County Health Department and the recipient of the 2023 Casper College Alumni Association's Distinguished Alumni Award. She has a background in healthcare and public health, graduated from Casper College in 1987 with an Associate of Science, earned a Bachelor of Science in Occupational Therapy from the University of North Dakota in 1991, and completed a Master of Science in Occupational Therapy at Colorado State University in 2000.
Anna began her career in the private practice, mental health, and education before transitioning into public health. In addition to her leadership role, she teaches for the University of Wyoming Casper's online degree program, Organizational Leadership, bringing her extensive experience to guide the next generation of professionals. Today, Anna will share her insights on organizational change, drawing from her work in healthcare and public health. Welcome, Anna.
Welcome, Anna. How's it
Thank
going?
you. It's going well, and you?
Doing fantastic. So, Anna, why organizational change? When we were talking about some topics, right? You were really excited to talk about organizational change. Can you, like, what makes you so passionate about it?
I think over time, after taking several leadership courses in the course of profession, that's what part of my classwork was when I got a master's degree, was leadership, and watching the evolution of how we got to where we are today. So it was actually nice to see like a name was put with like things that we aspire or wish to do with change. With organizational change, I think many people just assume a leadership role and don't have the opportunity to explore like a structured way of doing it. Trial, see how it works, try again, do something different. I think over time I've tried multiple different things, gone to conferences, come back, bring back ideas. But this, when I started teaching it and kind of absorbing it and getting involved with it, I recognized like the steps are there to kind of help you guide, to learn from best practices from people that have done it before. So it's actually kind of like bringing together many different things in a structured way.
How long have you been working with organizational change?
So I took the leadership position of the health department in 2019, right in the summertime, and then as everyone remembers that in February things kind of changed. And so while my intention was to start and kind of look at and work at the budget, look at staffing, some of the HR usual tasks that you have to do as a leader, but unfortunately COVID came, threw me into a different spotlight, a different way of looking at things where we didn't have a lot of answers. So we basically did everything that we could, the best way that we could, to get through all of those experiences. Since that time, we've been able to go back and look at how important it is to make sure your foundation is good. So we have started a strategic planning process at the health department, going back and kind of starting what I should have been doing back in 2019, but things changed rapidly, is to look at like how the organization works, what we're seeing, looking at the staff, how it's structured. Just because it's always been done that way doesn't mean it needs to stay that way. And where is the relevance and where do we fit in the community? So I think organizational change, the way that I understand it now, has really come like in the last 2 years since COVID has kind of stepped back and we try to find our new identity within the community.
Being with the health department and going into a situation like COVID, where on the health side, I mean, you guys are the people that everyone looks to. Like, how scary was that? Like, for even the people you worked with, how did you keep them calm during that kind of change, especially in a health-related topic like that?
Unfortunate thing was we had the health department operating, but I was pulled up to the emergency operations center. We had limited staff, and so the leader of that organization left to go to the emergency operations center. And then I was only in communication with them by phone or, various activities that way. But the best thing is that I was among other very strong leaders and a very supportive group of people. So you had, firefighters, police, sheriff, all of those individuals in the Emergency Operations Center. So it gave me a different perspective of like how they lead, which is very different than how I may perceive leadership. And we didn't have all the right answers, and we had to do a lot of hoping for the best situation, having to get in front of the public when you know that they are not happy, actually being in a situation where it had to be escorted because people were that unhappy. Looking back, I think while it is something that's very unpleasant for many people to think or talk about, it's become very political, there's also some very strong lessons and very strong partnerships that came from that. So there's, hate to say it, but almost more good things came than bad. So, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Was so intense of an experience. But can you talk a little bit more about your successful experience with organizational change? Like we were saying, there was a lot of lessons learned. Can you give some examples?
So one thing that I can give an example for, specifically looking at Casper College, early on when everything was completely shut down, I was contacted by leadership at the college because paramedics were not able to do their testing, which then prevented them going out into the workforce. So that is something that really had to be figured out in order for us to be able to get people where we needed the help and doing the things we needed to do. So we worked with the county health officer and the college very proactively, trying to figure out how to keep everyone as safe as possible, but yet giving them the opportunity or the ability to do the testing that they had to do in order to go into the workforce and help with the problem as a whole.
That's amazing. So it was essentially like mission essential people, even during COVID. That's incredible.
And I also couldn't imagine I had two sons that were in college at that time. Both were going to the University of Wyoming. One was the organizational leadership course here, and then the other one was down in Laramie for his engineering degree. Looking at how you've worked really hard to get it to a certain point, and the parents are, put money, time, and effort to get their kids to a certain point. How can you stop that trajectory and stop them for successfully completing school to go into the workforce? And we did see that we have a significant decline in the number of people that are working. The impacts of what we're seeing on students, where nursing students haven't been able to have hands-on experiences as much as they did before. Preceptorships are less because we just don't have the capacity to support them, and especially during COVID, they didn't have that ability. So there's a lot of things that are still now coming out that definitely have impacted, and I think that's where people have to really think about how they can change. So try to figure it out however you can, and it doesn't have to be right the first time. It's that plan, do, study, act of, well, let's try this and see if it makes it different, or be creative, thinking outside of the box. That's something that I do a lot and probably get in trouble a lot doing because I like to think outside of the box. I don't like to do the routine things. But you had to explore many different areas, but I think going back to the organizational change, that's the structure that many people talk about, but they don't know that that's what they're talking about. I think people miss that, or that's where some of the challenges come, is you don't follow through, you don't have the support or the background or the knowledge to continue a process. It's easy for me to come up with a fantastic idea, but I haven't laid the foundation. It's not going to make a difference.
And how do you prepare then your team for the change? So you came with this awesome idea out of the box, and then now what do you do? What is your process for that?
So what we've done in the last, CDC has actually given funding to public health agencies across the United States in order to build up the workforce, enhance the workforce, bring in people to the workforce. So there's funding that existed for retaining, developing, all of those kinds of things with workforce. And one of the biggest things was strategic planning. And I also knew the culture within my facility was not at its optimal level. So we brought in a consultant from the outside to help us with strategic planning, which is towards building towards that organizational change. But before you can go too far, you have to recognize what your mission is, your vision, and establish your values. Because if I don't know where I'm going, how will I know if I got there? So that's, very simple kind of, the bigger picture kind of thing. And then what we found is that we even had some challenges within, our interpersonal working together. During COVID, it didn't matter what department you were in because we all had to work on the same project. But ever since then, we've gone back to our own roles. So we've even talked about behavioral standards, so taking what those things are that we value, which in our situation is quality, respect, and empower. So making those into like behavioral standards, so it's how we treat each other, it's how we treat the public, etc., that we live by in order to meet our mission and vision. So that's kind of where we're at in the process now. The biggest thing that I would say that has come out of that is it's not something that can happen overnight. It's also something that you can't do everything all at the same time. If I have anything, my board chair tells me all the time, remember, it's going to take time. Don't start everything at once. So you have to do the right thing at the right time, which is very difficult. It is not easy. So, but you also have to have the right people in place for those who have the power, who can make change. While you need input from all levels within the organization, you need to make sure that you have people in place that will carry out your mission, because it can't just be my idea. They have to embrace it and believe in it and carry it forward also. And it's also something that continues to go. It's not something that you do once. Organizational change is going to be constant. You're constantly looking at it, going back to it, making sure you're on point.
So you had mentioned, Anna, about the culture, just being kind of off or, a little bit. Do you think like that sort of adversity is what triggers the change? Like having a situation that maybe isn't good, is that what drives the change, or were there other factors that caused you guys to go through a change like that?
So I think wanting to make sure that we retain the staff that we have. So if they're not, the other thing that goes with it, which is kind of a little off the topic, but not quite, is I have to know each employee that I have and the level of ability that they have. So I think a lot of times we put them in a position or a role, but we don't challenge them at their highest potential. Then they get tired of their job and then they leave. So investing into each individual, so building from the individual person to their group type that they're in, for example, like the administrative staff or the nursing staff, putting them together and then building out forward. So then by the time you get to the organization as a whole, hopefully the culture will change and everybody will see value and also respect the others to carry out the process to be better, right?
So when you were talking about like whole organizational change, so within that though, what you're, just so I understood, like, so there's individual change happening that then is creating a more holistic change.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
That's excellent. I love it.
It's really important that we need to realize that we should not just make assumptions that everybody's on the same page, right? As I think it's always really important to call everybody and have those conversations. Where are we at? What is our mission? What is our vision? Or just communicate that, because it's easy to just assume people are are like oriented towards the same goal, but maybe we need to align those.
Yep, absolutely. So knowing where each person is at. You talk about when you onboard a person, and if you do that well, and they relate to and they have mentors within the organization, they're going to be that much more successful. Then unfortunately we have offboarding, but sometimes that's a better fit for the person. You can't always look at it as a bad thing. But in between there needs to be the stay interviews. So why do you stay? What can we do? What resources can we give you? Then they'll be much more vested in knowing that they help carry the weight of the change. So as simple as putting up respect, empower, and quality, those things will be throughout the building in different places and things so that we're always thinking about it. It's always present. But we also have to think about what it does to the public and the outside. So while we have all the stuff that we're doing on the inside, we're also repairing isn't the right word, but we're re-identifying our identity so that we're not just associated with COVID, because we are so much more than that. But I think a lot of people have forgotten that over time.
So on that note, you said you have been working with some big organizational change right now, right? Do you want to talk a little bit more about the process? How's that been for you? Like where you are at now compared to where you were when COVID hit, for example, when you just started your position. Can you just give the contrasts on that or some similarities?
This summer we started with the strategic planning, as I mentioned, with the mission, vision, values, behavioral standards. Right now we have the operational initiatives, which have then the breakout of the steps that get to that point. There's a very daunting, very long document of a lot of things that need to happen. So everything from, we need to look at the programs that we have. Are they valuable? Do they fit within what's going on in our community? Do we have the right staffing? Do we have enough staffing? Do we need more funding? Like all of those areas. Looking at chronic disease, like places that we haven't typically provided care, which is including like mental health, right? Our community is struggling with that. We see it within our organizations. So giving people the mental health resources that they need to have is definitely something that we're kind of embarking on, which is new to us. And then the other two the main strategies have to do with the culture and building from there. So that can include like an HR person to come in and help with some of those tasks that maybe not everybody can do, so to speak, or is there, and is that person that someone can go to if they have concerns or have ideas or it's a different view, because, right, every single person has their own job and their own role, but we all have these additional things that make it a little bit more complex, and HR is one of those. So bringing in like a person to help with the HR, as well as looking at the structure. Right now, it's the executive director. So the Board of Health is over me. The executive director, county health officer, we're kind of on the same playing field. And then it's down to 6 managers, and then the staff are underneath. It's not optimal. It's not great. And the staff has complained that there's no ability to move up because the managers have been there for a really long time, right? One of them is retiring this year after 25 years of being at the health department. So, which I see also a big challenge that we have is looking within, and this is part of organizational change, looking within to your staff. Do you have a succession plan? Do you have people that you can raise up, give skills, give whatever it is they need to possibly step up into that next role? You don't always have to go outside, that if you could raise somebody from within. And I see that that's something that's often forgot, something that I've learned a long time ago, but have avoided it because it was very hard to figure out how to make it happen. But sometimes you have forced change when somebody says they're retiring, that you then go, yep, I should have done all of these things. So unfortunately, there's a lot of hindsight that you gain, that you realize, I should have done that different. And I think that is what I've seen, especially working with the students and in classes. They have amazing ideas. They have, a different viewpoint because they're working from everything from oil field veterans to tire companies. Like, there is a whole gamut of stuff. And the things that they come up with and they see and they build in that structure and the kind of the things with the change has taught me just as much as I hope to have taught them. But it doesn't have to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect because some factor will come in that will force you to change. And I think that's something that people forget. They think it's an easy, simple 8-step process, perhaps, that we talk about with leading change in 8 steps. It's not always. There's probably 8. There's 7A1-2 of every single thing that we try to do. So I think that's something that's forgotten a lot. And it's not perfect, but it's all to get to that better place. And as you may know, we're getting a new building. So my hope is we can change and build to be kind of new in a different place, so that when we move into that building, that's not something that we're carrying with us.
So one thing I've noticed even at the university level in the last couple of years is they've been adding a lot more like associate dean type positions, assistant director positions. So as you were talking about like the executive director and then 6 managers, is that something you guys have considered, like assistant managers or
we have
adding in layers between those two?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it will help with the workload. During COVID, we were as high as 100. We are now down to 31 employees. It's a big difference, and everybody is maxed out at the level that they can do things. So it's really hard to add in that extra layer. But yes, we need to, because not everybody, I have a person right now who's out on maternity leave. She's in a leadership role. So then that just right now just defaults back to me, which doesn't necessarily make sense. It shouldn't have to be that way. So that is something we're definitely looking at, how to do that. And sometimes the resources limit us, but I think there's some creative ways that we can figure that out.
Well, and it'll add empowerment, which is part of your mission. You had brought up a question earlier about why do you stay? And I was thinking about just that question, like literally connects to all 3 of your mission, your values, because you're asking them, what empowers them to stay there. And now I'm trying to remember the other two.
Quality and
respect. I mean, you're respecting them by asking them that. And then they're telling you the quality, like within the organization. So
and I agree.
Was a cool question.
Yeah, and that's so important because, we were talking about like succession, right? It's so easy to just leave it at the moment. Like, the organization's doing great right now. I'm doing all the work that I wanted to do. And then what happens when you have to retire? Like, whether you wanted like something happened with your health or family emergency, like who's gonna take care of the organization? What is the identity of the organization once you step out? And I love that you both brought that up. Things.
So I see that end much more than I see the other end of when I started. Like the other end is in sight of when I'm done, and what will that look like? What do I want to accomplish? Where do I want the organization to be? I think one of the hardest things that our consultant has asked is for me to identify what kind of leader I want to be seen as.
Oh, that's a good question.
That's really hard.
Yeah. Did you have a good response for that?
Not yet.
Still processing.
Still trying to make it up in my mind. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's really hard to answer that too.
Because I feel very strongly that you don't ask your staff to do something you wouldn't be willing to do. But that's as far as I'm kind of at a loss, and it's been really hard, but it's one of those really hard things that you need to think about without other interruptions in your life. I think strategic planning or organizational change is easy to forget about because day-to-day operations happen, activities, disasters, whatever comes in every day, we forget to always address those areas. So building in to make sure that you are continuing to look at it and reevaluating and changing according to where you want. You always have to keep where you're going, but it may take a different path to get there.
So I was curious, like when you're talking about all the different change, how do you manage resistance to change? Because I'm sure with 33 people, there's at least one, right? You can think of that one. How do you manage resistance?
So there is definitely some people that are resistant to change because it's always been done that way. Why would we change it? It works. And it's like, well, yeah, that is something you believe. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But I think if you can convince them or have them recognize like efficiency, making your job easier instead of harder, we're trying to figure this out. We need your input just as much as everybody else. So really trying to buy into that two-way street of what you get on both sides, what I get and what the staff person gets as well. So they're not just feeling like they're doing this work as extra work to get to somewhere. It's actually going to benefit them in the long run.
How about if you had to pick like the biggest challenge for you or that you see in implementing and sustaining change?
Definitely, you what is the saying of, you don't eat the whole elephant, you take one piece at a time, right? Like, so breaking it down, but you always have to figure out what the root cause of certain things are, right?
I like that, yeah.
If you don't know that it could be you're taking something away that could make that person be able to do something better, it's never going to work. It's not going to be successful. So I think the biggest thing is looking at change, getting, in my situation, 30 people to come along with me and believe in it and carry it out, but have to break it down so that it is doable. And you have to look for the little wins, right? I know what's over here at the end with my mission and vision, but I also have to think about what's in front of me right now and what might give us like momentum.
Yeah, I think so. When you talk about bringing 30 people with you, do you think, I mean, did you guys have a lot of meetings during the change, like checking in on them, like how is this feeling?
So meetings are an interesting thing. You know, it takes time. One of my students talked about Lean Six Sigma and how much time it takes for meetings and how many meetings they had to have and what granular level they got down to. You have to have everybody know what you're going for, what you're doing. So yes, you do have to have meetings, but you have to have that fine line where your meetings are productive. You're not meeting just to meet, and you know where you're going. Because I think it's easy to have a meeting to talk. Like, how many times do I just talk to Hugo and we don't make any progress because we're talking about 100 different things at the same time?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we've all been in that meeting where you walk out going, that could have been accomplished with a 5-minute email.
Yeah. But you're brainstorming, you're thinking, like, the individual is just as dynamic as the change that you're trying to put forward in the organization. So, like, you're just thinking that constant movement everywhere with the marbles all rolling together, like, to get them to the next destination. Yeah. But meetings are tricky. And like the consultant has met with them, you also have the new situation where you can do Zoom or you can do it in person. It's easy for you to present a certain way on a Zoom call than it is to meet with that person in person, right? How is their body posture? If you're only seeing from, your shoulders up, how do you know, like, this person is
Right.
like
And now the blur background, you don't even know. Maybe they're sitting in a pool.
into consideration, like who, where, and when those meetings need to take place. But I think the biggest thing is not to leave out the communication, because if you're having all these meetings, then people get a little suspicious as well. So communication about the meetings and having them be meaningful are the essential part.
No, so you said like you brought someone from outside, right? How did your staff feel about it, right? How was the process for you to like make sure like everybody felt comfortable with having that person coming? And I would say like judging, but it's not truly judging, right? But it's yes.
We tried strategic planning or looking at change when I first came on, right? And then it kind of stopped because of everything else. So then I tried to get some feedback and some understanding from the staff myself. But then it's kind of like people didn't want to say something that I may figure out who it is, wanting it to be anonymous, etc. So the person that we've contracted with really focused on making sure that no leadership or no one who has any power over those individuals were in the same group. So the managers weren't in those same areas, and we put like groups together. I do think it helps by having somebody from the outside come in, because everybody's going to think that I have like ulterior motive or trying to get to somewhere, when that's not the case at all. Like, I want your feedback. I need your feedback. I need to know what's going on. But if you're afraid to tell me, then it's not going to work. So I believe and how I feel about what we've done with the feedback that we've got from both the staff, and we also went out to our community partners to see what they thought. I feel like the information that we got back was very clear, very easy to understand, and that it is real. It's not protecting. I do know that there are some people that felt like, I've already told you everything, I don't want to be a narc anymore. Like, there is that thought that's there, but I think as a whole we were able to get more information because an outside person's coming in and it's not the boss asking the questions.
So I have one final question. Anna, if you could give advice to leaders navigating organizational change today, what would it be?
Have a plan. That's pretty much it. Knowing where you want to go and build that roadmap between the two places. The interesting thing that just kind of was an aha moment for me yesterday is because of what's going on with the strategic plan at Casper College is actually looking at your timeline as you go, and you have financial implications that take place. So when does budgeting take place? Well, for us, it starts in February. So that needs to, like, we're doing work now. We know February we have to have an idea of what we need for the budget. And then maybe, we're tackling some of the other initiatives. And then in July, we start a new year. So there's many factors that go into the game plan, but try to consider where meaningful change can happen when I go and I present to the county commissioners or when I go to city council fits into that plan. So having that roadmap with all those different steps in there, breaking it down as far as you can, I think is the key.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's really good. And like one biggest advice for being sure that everybody's on board, or like how to motivate them. Because I feel like that's like the people, the people side of it is I think is the most volatile one, if I want to say like that.
We have all kinds of personalities. You have all kinds of people doing different work. They also have very full-time jobs. So asking this is like a little bit extra above and beyond. But in getting them to see like where you're going and how it can benefit them is probably the best thing that you can do. What do they get out of it? Who cares if, the health department is like, doing X, Y, or Z if I don't get anything from it.
I appreciate that. Like making sure everybody's involved in it. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Anna, for coming today. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you everybody for listening for us today. See you next time.
Thank you.